am a public figure.
Okay.
I find this very publicly humiliating.
Can you please get in your vehicle?
Watch out, they may shoot you even though you're not black.
Okay, that was a very racist comment.
Yeah, it was.
Law enforcement in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, tried to initiate a traffic stop on October the 4th of 2023, following reports of shoplifting from a Dick's Sporting Goods on West Burley Avenue. Police dashcam footage showed that the target vehicle's driver, subsequently identified as Dereonna Anderson, refused to stop. She eventually pulled over after taking an off-ramp. Two officers got out and approached Anderson's vehicle, but she didn't roll down any of the windows. Her car remained stationary for roughly 7 minutes, at which point the officers threw stop sticks in front of it and attempted to break its passenger's side window. Moments later, Anderson reversed the vehicle, nearly hitting one of the officers, and sped off. In doing so, she appeared to run over the spike strip. The chase resumed, and officers blasted their sirens as Anderson weaved in and out of traffic. She ran a red light and accelerated to over 90 miles per hour, but the vehicle eventually broke down due to the pierced tire, and she crashed at 84th Street. Dashcam video from the approaching police car showed two suspects jumping out of the target vehicle while it was still in motion. One ran away while the other fell to her knees and lost her shoes. She went to retrieve them, at which point an officer ran towards her with his gun drawn and shouted at her to get on the ground. As police gained control of the suspect, Anderson's car continued to roll away and eventually stopped after hitting a fence. When officers searched the disabled vehicle, they found men's clothing with the tags still attached. They then called for a K9 unit to search for Anderson through a nearby neighborhood. Body cam footage showed that the police dog tracked her down and found her hiding behind a garbage can. The officer recording the video aimed his pistol at Anderson and ordered her to come out. He warned that failure to comply would result in her being bitten by the dog. The pink-haired suspect dropped to her knees and was handcuffed. She told the officers, "Please don't be rough," as they took her into custody. Anderson initially didn't give them her name and asked for water while also complaining that her knees hurt. The woman faced multiple charges, including retail theft and eluding an officer. Anderson smiled widely in her mugshot, which was released online. Several users were outraged by her behavior, arguing that she appeared to be proud of herself, in spite of endangering a number of motorists during her attempt to flee the arrest. Number 23. Skyler Fluss. In the spring of 2022, Colorado teen Skyler Fluss posted a video to her social media in which she boasted about avoiding a DUI arrest. In the clip, captioned, "No DUI for me," the 18-year-old Columbine High School senior claimed that she talked her way out of the arrest by crying crocodile tears and giving the cop a sob story about breaking up with her boyfriend. Fluss laughed at law enforcement throughout the video. The teen added that she was let off with a warning in spite of blowing a 3.8 on a breathalyzer, and that the cop even gave her his number and asked her out. The teen posted another video claiming it was from the night preceding the traffic stop, which showed her chugging tequila and staggering after doing a handspring. Fluss's video went viral, and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office consequently released body cam footage from the night in question. It would put the teen in an embarrassing light, as it contradicted significant parts of her version of events. Deputy Tyler Stahl told Fluss that he'd stopped her because she was weaving in traffic. The body cam footage did show the teen as she was seemingly fake crying while claiming to have just been dumped. Stahl asked Fluss if she'd been drinking, and she denied having done so. The high school student didn't appear to be slurring her words and showed no visible signs of impairment. After checking her license and registration, Stahl returned to Fluss's car and told her, "Sounds like you're having a rough night, so I'm not going to add to that by writing you a ticket or anything, okay?" Fluss wasn't breathalyzed, and the officer, albeit courteous and compassionate, was at no point flirtatious. Stahl claimed that he couldn't believe the claims that the teen had made online, telling Inside Edition, "I'm glad I was sitting down when I got the phone call." The man highlighted that without the body cam footage, the situation would have turned into a he said, she said scenario that could have resulted in serious complications. Fluss reportedly reacted to her public embarrassment by claiming that she still had a lot of growing up to do. Number 22. Andrea Smith. On March the 14th of 2024, Sergeant Andrea Smith of the Miami Gardens Police Department was pulled over by her colleagues after they spotted her speeding through multiple red lights. As seen in body cam footage, a fellow officer told the woman, "Are you serious, Sergeant? Really? You see how you're driving?" But she replied, "I'm good." Smith was asked to exit her vehicle, and her colleagues noticed that she exhibited bloodshot, watery eyes, in addition to slurred speech and having the smell of alcohol on her breath. The off-duty sergeant, who was wearing a dress and heels, agreed to perform field sobriety tests. However, an officer interrupted the procedures and told her that his sergeant had asked for a Miramar officer to take over. When they arrived at the scene, they also noted the odor of alcohol emanating from Smith, and she reportedly refused to take a breathalyzer. She was handcuffed and taken to the back of a police vehicle. In the moments that followed, Smith yelled, "I'm not crazy, I'm sober," at the arresting officer and warned him, "If they can take a sergeant to jail, they can take you to jail." She then complained about being treated like an animal. In spite of insisting she was sober, Smith nodded off multiple times on her way to jail. While awake, she offered financial advice to the arresting officer, telling them to make your money and get out. Smith said that after Internal Affairs had investigated her in October of the previous year, she started a car business. The woman added that the car in which she was arrested, a white Mercedes, was worth $130,000. Smith was booked for DUI and reckless driving, to which she pleaded not guilty. She was promptly relieved of duty by the Miami Gardens Police Department. Her lawyer described the arrest as a travesty of justice, pointing to the body cam video as proof that Smith wasn't intoxicated and had agreed to sobriety tests. The lawyer argued that the officer was persecuted for being a whistleblower, but didn't elaborate on that statement. Number 21. Sarah Jean Sellers. On Valentine's Day 2025, a woman from North Carolina was arrested and faced over 80 counts of statutory and indecent liberties offenses. The charges stemmed from her alleged abuse of multiple minors. Brunswick County authorities didn't elaborate on the circumstances of the case, beyond stating that the crimes of which 44-year-old Sarah Jean Sellers stood accused had occurred between 2018 and 2019. Sellers was reported to have victimized 4 boys, 2 of whom were preteens when the abuse took place. The woman was married for 22 years and had 2 children of her own. Sellers' social media featured hundreds of photos and clips that seemingly suggested she was part of a loving family. The woman's double life as a twisted predator sharply contrasted the image she presented to the world. The investigation into her crimes was ongoing as of the latest updates on the matter, and she was booked at the Brunswick County Detention Center with her bond set at $2 million. Sellers faced anywhere from 15 years in prison to spending the rest of her life behind bars. Number 20. Dylan Devereaux. Just after midnight on January the 27th of 2025, officers from the Florida Highway Patrol attempted to pull over a reckless driver in Pasco County. The man in question, 36-year-old Dylan Devereaux, sped away and a chase ensued. As seen in the footage posted by the FHP, the pursuit ended with Devereaux crashing his pickup truck into a tree. He pulled himself from the wreck and tried to flee on foot, but officers brought him down with the use of a taser. They managed to handcuff only one of Devereaux's wrists before he became combative again. The man fought the troopers in the road and managed to flee into nearby woods. Law enforcement waited for backup and subsequently deployed a canine unit that led them to a home where Devereaux lived with his girlfriend, 31-year-old Megan Elizabeth Hamilton. The woman answered the door and told officers that she couldn't allow them to enter the home because she had drugs on the premises and didn't want to get arrested. The police obtained a warrant and subsequently arrested the couple. Devereaux was pictured in handcuffs while wearing a Dalmatian patterned onesie. The outfit, coupled with the man's crimes, resulted in considerable media attention, with one outlet running a headline that read 101 citations, a play on words inspired by the Disney animated movie 101 Dalmatians. Devereaux was charged with 13 offenses, including reckless driving, battery and assault on an officer, depriving a law enforcement officer of equipment, and possession of methamphetamine. Number 19. Brittany Fortinberry. In August of 2024, 2 students from the Eminence High School in Indiana approached staff to report that their math teacher, 31-year-old Brittany Fortinberry, had sent them inappropriate photos over social media. One of the boys said that their interaction had begun as a general conversation before it turned explicit, with the teacher sending him revealing photos of herself. Fortinberry also shared images of her adult toys and the exotic dancing pole she had installed in her Martinsville home. She additionally made suggestive comments, one of which was that she'd been dreaming about having intercourse with one of her students. Fortinberry was fired later in August. Then in December, another of her victims came forward. A woman went to the Morgan County Prosecutor's office to report that her grandson had disclosed to her that the teacher had abused him when he was in his mid-teens. Detectives interviewed the victim, and he showed them a photo of himself which was taken in the shower at Fortinberry's home. In October of 2023, the teacher reportedly had relations with him several times, including when she took him 70 miles away to the town of French Lick. The boy said that he chose to disclose the situation in order to prevent Fortinberry from molesting other youths. He recounted that he'd first interacted with the teacher on Snapchat. The conversation progressed to her sending him nude photos of herself, which ultimately led to them having relations. The teen reported that the teacher supplied him with drugs and threatened self-harm if he ever spoke to anyone about what went on between them. When asked how many other teens Fortinberry had abused, the boy said at least 5, maybe 10, noting that only some would be willing to talk about it. In February of 2025, Fortinberry was arrested and charged with intimate misconduct with a minor, dissemination of matter harmful to a minor, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The teen's allegation was verified through a search warrant executed at the disgraced teacher's home. According to an affidavit, Fortinberry seemingly blamed her behavior on weight loss. The woman told the arresting officer that she regretted the day that she lost weight and that she didn't think she would run into any of these issues if she was still 150 pounds heavier. Number 18. Marcy. On February the 15th of 2024, after an Allegiant plane landed at Punta Gorda Airport in Charlotte County, Florida, law enforcement received a call about a woman causing a disturbance on the aircraft. Body cam footage showed officers approaching the suspect, who was only identified as Marcy, as she exited the aircraft. The woman's first words to the police were, "Arrest me." She then cautioned an officer not to be mean, even though he'd only asked her to continue deboarding and moving down the steps. The woman repeatedly refused to identify herself after she was told that she was being detained for being drunk and disorderly. Marcy's husband tried to reason with her, but she ordered him to go away. Frustrated, the man eventually gave officers her name, much to her discontent. Marcy then tried to walk away, saying that she'd been waiting for 5 hours to smoke a cigarette. When law enforcement refused to grant her request, the entitled woman said, "I'm gonna have a cigarette before I talk to you, so you tell me where I'm having it." In spite of officers' attempts to ease tensions, she persistently refused to give them her ID and also dared them to arrest her. Marcy blamed her drunkenness on Allegiant over-serving her and also blamed her husband for the situation she was in before again attempting to walk away. It was then that law enforcement moved in to arrest her. At that moment, her husband broke down, telling the officers, "Okay, take her in," before calling Marcy an a-hole. She was handcuffed, and as she was being led away, asked the officer if he had little man syndrome, before boasting that her son was younger than him and already a sergeant. The woman, a Michigan native, let off a loud "woo" in front of other flyers as the officer escorted her through the terminal. She then became agitated, yelled at the cop, and tried to pull away, prompting him to grab her arm. Once in the police vehicle, Marcy threatened to sue Allegiant and the police department. She hurled more insults at the cop behind the wheel before claiming that she'd come to Florida on vacation. The officer replied, "Well, fortunately, you're going to be doing your first part of the vacation in our jail." Footage of Marcy's arrest, which was uploaded to the Police Watch YouTube channel in February of 2025, earned nearly 300,000 views. Number 17. University of Hawaii incident. In the fall of 2019, a video began circulating on social media of a young man making an embarrassing attempt to flee law enforcement on a University of Hawaii campus. The clip showed 2 officers calmly walking in the background as the suspect, who appeared to be severely intoxicated, ran away from them. He tried to jump a guardrail but failed and front flipped over it. He then strenuously pulled himself up and within seconds attempted to climb over a second guardrail but went down once more. Bystanders were heard laughing in the background, and the person behind the camera jokingly asked, "Yo, what are you on, bro?" It wasn't clear if the suspect was a student at the university. He continued running and falling over as officers closed in on him. The original poster of the video revealed on Instagram that the suspect was eventually apprehended and carried out by paramedics on a stretcher. It wasn't clear if he was charged with an offense or if he sustained any injuries during the incident. Number 16. Lauren Maten. In early January of 2025, Tennessee law enforcement released body cam footage of a young woman having a meltdown during her arrest at Nashville Airport on March the 15th of the previous year. As seen in the footage, Lauren Maten was approached by officers who'd responded to a call from staff at the 400 Degrees restaurant They'd accused 24-year-old Maten of failing to pay her bill. When questioned about it, she insisted that she'd completed the payment. The officer asked for her ID, and Maten gave it up. Moments later, while slurring her words, Maten repeatedly demanded that the cop return her iPhone, before eventually correcting herself to say that she meant ID. Maten then became irate, raised her voice, and tried to snatch her ID out of the officer's hand. She was consequently handcuffed and informed that she was being arrested for public intoxication. Maten appeared to be confused and screamed for help, saying, "Everything is happening for a reason," insisting that she was sober. Maten at one point slumped to the floor, saying, "Public intoxication is not even a thing in Indiana," to which an officer calmly replied, "You're in Tennessee." She was placed in a wheelchair and escorted towards the exit, but continued to scream and bizarrely implored President Joe Biden for help. 3 officers had to wrestle Marcy into an elevator as she continued resisting and writhed on the floor. The woman, a self-styled spiritual guru, continued shrieking at the top of her lungs as a female officer gave her a pat down, and after she was placed in the police vehicle. Martin continued arguing with law enforcement while en route to the station, but eventually settled down and started singing. The young woman faced charges of resisting arrest and public intoxication, but they were ultimately dismissed, and she was instead ordered to pay $220 in court fees. Number 15. Shaun Derrick McGuire. In the fall of 2019, a man was arrested on the eastern outskirts of Sacramento after breaking into an El Dorado Hills home. 911 caller Matthew Eskridge woke up to find the suspect, 37-year-old Shaun Derrick McGuire, rummaging through his things, as seen in home surveillance footage. The man was wearing only a bra and women's panties. Eskridge initially suspected that McGuire had changed into his wife's intimate garments after entering the home. However, it was determined that the clothing items didn't belong to his wife, and it remained unclear how McGuire had gotten hold of them. Upon being confronted by Eskridge, the burglar fled, jumping fences and running through backyards. The El Dorado Sheriff's Office, aided by a canine unit of the Folsom Police Department, launched a manhunt. In an uninspired bid to throw pursuers off his trail, McGuire removed his lingerie and opted to run completely nude. He was eventually apprehended. The man, a former active duty service member at Fort Hood, had a history of deviancy and was on parole at the time of the suburban break-in. In addition to other perverted acts, he'd publicly pleasured himself in several stores. During one such incident, he smiled and exposed himself to a female shopper. In 2003, McGuire fondled himself to completion in the toy and cosmetics section of a Target. His repeated indecent exposure offenses resulted in a Texas military judge sentencing him to 10 months confinement, and he was released from the Army with a bad conduct discharge. For the most recent incident, McGuire was charged with burglary and indecent exposure with a prior, both felonies, as well as misdemeanor counts of prowling on private property and trespassing. Number 14. Rodrigo Rodrigues da Silva. In the fall of 2023, a man broke into a property in Parnaíba, northeast Brazil, while wearing a bright red face mask, bladed gauntlets, and a long, flowing coat. Armed with an iron bar, Rodrigo Rodrigues da Silva began battering a man who was sleeping inside the residence. The victim was struck in the legs and chest, but then woke up and fought back against the aggressor. Da Silva fled the home and was later picked up by the police. The man, whose mask barely covered his face, reportedly called himself the Punisher of Parnaíba. Officers found him to be in possession of several weapons, including multiple knives and homemade throwing blades which resembled Batman's batarangs. The superhero-themed circumstances of Da Silva's arrest were reminiscent of an incident that had taken place in Lima, Peru, roughly a year prior. In a blending of the DC and Marvel comic book universes, 4 local police officers dressed themselves as Catwoman, Spider-Man, Captain America, and Thor. The undercover cops pretended to be doing promotion for a Halloween concert in the San Juan de Lurigancho neighborhood. The ruse was part of an operation that was codenamed Marvel, which culminated with them raiding a home that was used as a base for drug dealing. Footage showed the superhero-clad officers bursting through the door and taking control of family members, all of whom were reportedly involved with drugs. Law enforcement recovered 3,250 small packages of basic cocaine paste, a crude extract of coca leaf, as well as 287 bags of cocaine and 127 of marijuana. The drugs were displayed on a table, and the visibly embarrassed arrestees posed with the police officers, who were still wearing their costumes, with Captain America brandishing a wide smile. Number 13. Montana Fishburne. On March the 11th of 2017, Montana Fishburne was pulled over by the Florida Highway Patrol after rear-ending a car on the I-95 near Fort Lauderdale. The 26-year-old was the daughter of actor Lawrence Fishburne, best known for his role as Morpheus in the Matrix sci-fi trilogy. Montana's relationship with her father was reported to have become strained after she starred in a hardcore adult film in 2010 under the name Chippy D. The young woman reportedly hoped that she would be able to parlay the attention into lucrative opportunities, much like socialite Kim Kardashian had through her own adult film. Montana was ultimately unable to do so and went on to become an exotic dancer. During the March the 11th stop, she failed multiple sobriety tests. An open bottle of wine was found in her Toyota Corolla, and her BAC was more than twice the legal limit. Her interaction with FHP trooper Jay Pinson was captured on a dashcam. After she was handcuffed, the young woman told the trooper, "I really need to pee." She then lifted the back of her dress, exposing her V-string panties. As cars whizzed by, Montana told Pinson, "I will pee right here on your floor. That's not a problem. I just need to sit down." She then stepped over the highway guardrail. Pinson briefly attempted to pull her back, but Montana carried on telling him, "That's fine, just hold me." She then pulled her panties down and squatted, prompting Pinson to ask her what she was doing. Montana exclaimed, "I'm peeing," then looked up at him and seemingly frustrated, said, "Is that okay? Can I pee?" Prompting the trooper to throw his arms up and reply, "Well, you're already doing it." The woman stepped back over the guardrail and after she was placed in the cop car, asked Pinson to help with pulling her dress back down. While she was driven to jail, Montana told the exceedingly patient trooper that he was her bae. The young woman was charged with DUI, DUI property damage and enhanced DUI. She initially pleaded not guilty but changed her plea to no contest on February the 9th of 2018. Montana avoided a custodial sentence and was given 12 months probation with multiple conditions that included community service, staying away from intoxicants and attending programs pertaining to abusing substances while driving. Number 12. Kelly Martin. In the fall of 2017, Englishwoman Kelly Martin was jailed for 7 months following a string of offences that included repeatedly relieving herself on a World War I monument in Grays, Essex. She'd first done so on April the 4th of 2016, when the site was still covered in remembrance poppy wreaths. A passerby snapped a photo of her in the act. Martin urinated on the monument again in June of 2016, one day before the 100th anniversary of the start of the Battle of the Somme. Her deranged behaviour, which was reported to have been intentionally aimed at veterans, outraged the community. Martin was convicted of her crimes at Basildon Crown Court, but was free by September of 2017. On the 29th of the month, she walked into a Grays police station on Brook Road and asked to use the toilet, but was told that there were none at the station. The mother of 5 reportedly said, "Well, I will go and pee out the front of the station then." An officer found her relieving herself on the concrete outside. Then on October the 4th, Martin returned to the War Memorial where she squatted and urinated on her boyfriend. At the time, the woman was reported to have been very intoxicated and holding a can of extra-strength lager. She was arrested once more. When the prosecution described her vile actions, Martin, who had no job or fixed address, told the court, yeah, apparently I do it every week." Number 11. Evgeniy Dorman. On September the 22nd of 2018, Corey Cannon was driving to work when he saw something on Joe Parker Road in Lakewood, New Jersey. He initially thought it was an object that might damage his truck. Then as he slowed down, Cannon realized that there was a toddler crawling in the middle of the street. The man later told News 12, "It kind of stopped my heart, but I knew I had to act fast." Cannon blocked traffic and snapped a photo of the baby boy as he got out of his truck. A neighbor then went into the street, scooped up the 10-month-old and took him to a nearby house. The boy was reunited with his father, 41-year-old Evgeniy Dorman. The latter reportedly wasn't paying attention, and the child crawled out of his home through a door that had been accidentally left open by his older sibling. Cannon's photo went viral and the police began investigating the matter. About a week after the incident, Dorman was arrested and charged with child neglect. Number 10. Robert Jenner.
Robert, last warning, you need to open the door, it's going to be damaged and you'll end up paying for it. Step away from the door, please, Robert. Good night, Mum. Put them down now or you'll get sprayed again. Got a pair of scissors.
Leading up to June of 2023, Englishman Robert Jenner, a self-proclaimed naturist, had repeatedly flaunted police orders that banned him from exposing himself in public, resulting in multiple arrests and convictions. Jenner, former soldier who'd served with the Princess of Wales Regiment, became known as the Naked Carpenter in 2016 and attracted media attention for carrying out DIY jobs around his Maidstone home in the nude. It resulted in nearly a dozen complaints from his neighbors, but in early 2017 he was cleared of indecent exposure charges. In the aftermath, Jenner amassed more charges for wearing crotchless jeans while working as a Hermes delivery driver and for walking through a supermarket wearing transparent shorts. An order was imposed in 2019 that required Jenner to cover his privates with at least one layer of clothing while in public. Nevertheless, more incidents of Jenner exposing his privates followed. They included going to the Maidstone police station wearing see-through garments and donning similar clothing while strolling through the town centre. In spite of legal backlash, the serial flasher's behaviour persisted and resulted in him racking up a total of 11 convictions as well as 2 breaches of the court order. On the evening of June the 15th of 2023, multiple officers went to his Albion Place home after investigators determined that Jenner matched the description of a man jumping out of bushes and exposing himself to women in nearby Mott Park. The police arrived to find that Jenner had used furniture, including an overturned sofa, to barricade his front door. Officers smashed their way into the apartment using door enforcer equipment. They saw that Jenner was completely naked and in an agitated mood. The man retreated into the kitchen lounge area, and police constable Shaun, who was at the time in his mid-50s, climbed over the furniture barricade and went after him. Jenner clutched a pair of scissors and launched a brutal, frenzied, and wholly gratuitous attack on Quinn, which was captured on the officer's body cam. The 27-year police veteran was wearing a stab-proof vest but had no time to react. Jenner inflicted 19 wounds above Quinn's neckline, 3 to his bare arms and another that went through his wrist. One of the bladed strikes left a large gash across the width of the officer's forehead, exposing his skull. Quinn's colleague, PC Ashley Bates, repeatedly struck Jenner in the back of the head, thus enabling a third officer, PC Luke Isaacs, to prise the scissors from his grip. Bates later said of Quinn's injuries, his head was covered in blood and there was a pool of blood just spilling out behind his head. It was horrific. In addition to the stab injuries, Quinn, a married father, suffered 3 muscle ruptures in his thigh during the fight with Jenner. He needed surgery to reattach the muscles but was left 20% disabled. He mostly recovered from his other wounds and in July of 2024 returned to restricted duties but was reportedly considering early retirement. In the vicious attack's immediate aftermath, Jenner was arrested and, while covered in the victim's blood, told officers that he didn't mean to do it and didn't want it to come to this. He subsequently pleaded not guilty to attempted murder and wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. Jenner refused to leave his cell at the high-security Belmarsh prison to attend his trial and answered no comment to questions directed towards him. His lawyer would argue that his actions had a self-defense and mental health component to them, but a jury ultimately found him guilty. On February the 4th of 2025, Jenner was jailed for 30 years and would have to serve 2/3 of his sentence before he could be considered for parole. Number 9. Isaac Betancourt. For months leading up to November of 2024, an unnamed 93-year-old woman from Los Angeles and her relatives had been hearing strange sounds coming from beneath the floorboards of her home in the El Sereno neighborhood. The family believed that animals were rummaging beneath the house, but the noises intensified on the night of November the 7th, and they called the police. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a man living in the home's 2-foot-tall crawl space. The suspect, subsequently identified as 27-year-old Isaac Betancourt, was naked and he refused to come out. The police called in a SWAT team and the process of getting Betancourt to emerge would take several hours. The authorities used tear gas to drive him out of the crawl space, but it had 3 points of access which enabled the man to find breathing room, fearing that he would succumb to suffocation. Betancourt eventually surrendered. Photos from the scene showed him being taken away on a stretcher by paramedics. Afterwards, law enforcement found an array of blankets and food under the house. The intruder, who in recent years had been arrested at least 5 times in Los Angeles, was charged with trespassing and he was subsequently released. It was suspected that Betancourt had been living under the El Sereno house for 6 months. Number 8. Dave Grohl. In 2000, the Foo Fighters were performing at the Big Day Out Festival in Australia. During a pause in production, the band's frontman, Dave Grohl, decided to rent a moped and do some sightseeing on the Gold Coast. Grohl, who had risen to prominence as the drummer of revolutionary alternative rock band Nirvana, was pulled over at a random breath test checkpoint. It was revealed that he had a blood alcohol level of 0.95. He was arrested and later convicted of drunk driving, whereupon he was given a $400 fine. Grohl retold the story numerous times since the incident and included it in his memoir, The Storyteller, Tales of Life and Music. He noted how embarrassing it was for him to fill out a travel declaration form every time he visited the country. Grohl wrote, "They pull me aside at the airport and I have to tell them the story and they laugh. And then I go and pick up my bag." In December of 2023, between sets at Brisbane's Suncorp Stadium, the 54-year-old ranted about the drunk driving incident. Grohl told those in attendance, "I was on a scooter that ran to the Gold Coast, so I can go to SeaWorld and drink blue shots that you light on fire." The frontman added that he was supposed to be on vacation but spent his time in jail with a guy in a Primus shirt who couldn't stop snoring. Online users generally reacted to Grohl's story with humor and lightheartedness, but the tone was markedly more serious during another bout of public embarrassment, roughly a year after the Brisbane concert. On September the 10th of 2024, Grohl announced on Instagram, "I've recently become the father of a new baby daughter, born outside of my marriage." He had fathered the child after cheating on Jordan Blum, his wife of 21 years with whom he shared 3 daughters. In the social media post, Grohl stated that he intended to be a part of his newborn daughter's life while also working to re-earn the trust and forgiveness of his family. 38-year-old Jennifer Young, an LA-based comic book writer, confirmed that she was the mother of Grohl's daughter. She told Page 6 that the child was born on August the 1st of 2024 and shared the musician's last name on the birth certificate. Young chose to protect her daughter's identity, pointing to Grohl's prominence and noting, "There's some really angry fans." Number 7. Simon Ince. In February of 2024, a man from Kent, England, was spotted naked near a playground in Vale Drive Park in Chatham. Someone took a photo of him and shared it with law enforcement. The man was subsequently identified as 51-year-old Simon Ince, a sergeant with Kent Police, and he was arrested by his colleagues. An examination of his phone revealed photos which indicated that he'd engaged in acts of self-gratification in the same area of the park 5 months prior to the February incident. Ince was dismissed from the force during a fast-tracked gross misconduct hearing. The father of 2 admitted pleasuring himself in public, but in an email sent ahead of the disciplinary hearing, attempted to mitigate his behavior by saying he'd made sure he was hidden from public view at the time. His explanation did nothing to prevent his termination and the pursuit of a legal case against him. Kent Police attempted to secure a charge of either indecent exposure or outrage in public decency. However, the Crown Prosecution Service ruled that there was no evidence Ince had been seen by anyone, and so his actions didn't constitute criminality. By March of 2025, Ince avoided jail and was given a conditional caution, which entailed that he would have to undergo a thinking skills online course and stay away from the Vale Drive Park area. When reporters went to his home, his wife told them that Ince had opted to stay in a hotel because of online threats. The primary source of outrage towards his actions was his proximity to the playground area. The woman added that she believed her husband's behavior stemmed from a mental breakdown brought about by the stress and high-pressure nature of his job. Number 6. Edilberto Burgos.
Make my cinnamon toasted raisin bagel with bacon, egg, and cheese. I don't want to listen. Make my right now. Make my right now.
24-year-old Edilberto Burgos was arrested by the NYPD in early January of 2019 after publicly embarrassing himself during a meltdown at a Brooklyn deli. The incident occurred on November the 25th of 2018 and began with Burgos storming into the establishment at around 4:30 a.m. A 30-second clip captured by a bystander showed the man screaming and pounding on the counter glass as he demanded a cinnamon toasted raisin bagel with bacon, egg, and cheese. Burgos was reported to have flown into a fit of rage after worker Sanjay Patel told him to wait 5 to 10 minutes because other orders were pending. Before the clip cut off, Burgos repeatedly cursed at Patel and threw a bag of bread at him. The police were called, but the suspect fled in the meantime. 28-year-old Patel told law enforcement that Burgos had pelted him with a shopping basket, a computer tablet, and a metal bell used to take orders. He also reportedly threatened to come back and shoot the worker. Patel was treated for bruising and swelling to his head from the objects with which Burgos had struck him. Over a month later, Burgos was arrested at his Bed-Stuy apartment and charged with assault and menacing. Number 5. Michael Boatman. On an early morning in the spring of 2021, law enforcement approached a man as he was walking naked on New Cut Road in Spartanburg, South Carolina. 41-year-old Michael Boatman had a marijuana cigarette in his hand and only a clear plastic bag covering his privates. The man claimed that he was doing a walk of shame as penance for cheating on his wife. Boatman reportedly asked officers if he could complete his nude punishment but was denied. According to arrest documents, the man referenced Adam and Eve from the Bible, stating that he was willing to go to jail for his acts. Boatman admitted to using methamphetamine prior to embarking on the nude walk. At one point, during the encounter with law enforcement, he attempted to flee, but was taken down and handcuffed. Boatman, who had a lengthy criminal record, was charged with indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, marijuana possession, and resisting police. Number 4. Dajiya Blackwell. In the fall of 2023, protests and widespread looting erupted in Philadelphia after the city's police officers had shot and killed 27-year-old Eddie Irizarry within 5 seconds of pulling him over for driving erratically. The turmoil on the streets was in response to a decision from September the 26th that saw a judge dismiss all charges against Mark Dial, the officer who'd shot Irizarry. 21-year-old influencer Dajiya Blackwell, also known as Meatball, went live on Instagram as she joined in on the rioting and looting. Blackwell told her followers, who numbered over 180,000, "Tell the police if they lock me up tonight, it's going to be lit. It's going to be a movie. Everybody's gotta eat." Blackwell laughed and cheered, "We outside," as she joined the mob. She recorded them as they looted name brand stores before moving on to a liquor store where she herself boasted about grabbing a bottle of Hennessy. Blackwell was gleeful throughout the chaotic campaign, telling the camera, "We terrorize this city," adding that the reaction was due to people getting no justice in Philadelphia. Dozens of arrests were made as police tried to retake control of the city, and at around midnight, law enforcement located Blackwell in her friend's car. She was still live streaming when officers took her into custody and tried to talk her way out of the arrest, telling them, "We didn't have anything to do with this." Blackwell was charged with burglary, conspiracy, criminal trespass, riot, criminal mischief, criminal use of a communication facility, receipt of stolen property, and disorderly conduct. She was subsequently released on bail and pleaded with her followers to buy clothing from her brand as a way of supporting her legal battles. The behavior triggered mixed reactions online, with one user writing, "Wait, you stole from others but want people to pay for your stuff," and another calling the young woman a laughingstock. Blackwell's lawyer took to social media and described the riot-related arrests as an all-out assault on black and brown people, as their character and actions are mercilessly vilified. The legal representative also criticized the police for releasing Blackwell's embarrassing mugshot, which showed her with tears streaming down her face and her hair a mess. Blackwell, however, capitalized on the attention by selling clothes featuring the image, some of which included the message, "Free Meatball." Blackwell also used the mugshot as her profile picture, and her follower count across platforms rose to over 1 million in the scandal's wake. She ultimately avoided a custodial sentence. In the summer of 2024, she was given 5 years probation, a $10,000 fine, and 150 hours of community service. Number 3. Iain Fogerty. In early January of 2015, Liberal Party campaigners were on the streets of Brisbane, Australia, when they were approached by 44-year-old Iain Fogerty. The man was wearing a t-shirt that read, "I'm with Stupid," and featured a hand pointing to the side. Law enforcement was called and Fogerty was arrested for being a public nuisance and disruptive to people. A Liberal Party worker told the Brisbane Times that Fogerty was behaving aggressively and trying to intimidate them. Labour Party campaigners maintained that the man had done nothing wrong, noting that he only waved while standing next to people. The incident attracted attention on social media, with some users arguing that arresting a man for wearing an ironic t-shirt was a draconian measure and an embarrassing misuse of authority. Others countered that argument by saying that it was Fogerty who should have been embarrassed of his harassing behaviour. The outcome of his case remained unclear, but Queensland Police insisted that the arrest had nothing to do with the t-shirt. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and maybe it will be your video that we'll be doing next. Number 2. Farron Salley.
I am a public figure.
Okay.
I find this very publicly humiliating.
Can you please get in your vehicle?
Watch out, they may shoot you even though you're not black.
Okay, that was a very racist comment.
Yeah, it was.
Sure, 6.25.
On December the 15th of 2018, Farron Salley, a morning and weekend anchor at West Palm Beach's Channel 25, was pulled over in Florida by Palm Beach Gardens police officers. Officer Cameron Carver told the 28-year-old that it stopped her for driving her black Honda Accord at night without her tail lights switched on.
Hello, miss. Officer Carter, Palm Beach Gardens Police Department. The reason why I'm pulling you over is because you're actually driving with no taillights. I believe you're only driving with your daytime driving lights on. And yep, they're completely off. There you go. Can I see your license, registration, proof of insurance, please?
During her initial interaction with the officer, Salley claimed that she didn't feel like being pulled over and that she didn't have anything to say to him.
I don't feel like being pulled over right now.
Okay.
My phone is not...
Well, you're the one driving without lights on, so...
Yeah, well, you're the one pulling me over right now.
Yeah, it's my job.
The remarks set the tone for her behavior in the hour that followed, with law enforcement describing her as defiant, aggressive, rude, and thoroughly annoyed. Carver smelled alcohol on her breath and noticed that her speech was slurring. In addition to her eyes being bloodshot, Salley's fiancé, Colleen, was in the passenger seat and urged her to cooperate. Salley was asked to step out of the vehicle and perform field sobriety tests, whereupon she admitted to having a vodka drink earlier in the night.
How much you get to drink tonight?
I have had one drink.
One drink. What
Yes,
kind
sir.
of drink?
Yes, it was a vodka drink.
A vodka drink.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
During the exercises, she implied that her predicament was somehow racially motivated, telling Colleen, "The law doesn't work for people who look like me." Then later on, after Officer Carver told Colleen to remain in the car, Salley said, "Watch out, they may shoot you even though you're not black."
Can you please get in your vehicle?
Watch out, they may shoot you even though you're not black.
Okay, that was a very racist comment.
Yeah, it was.
Go ahead and stand with your feet together again, like I instructed you.
Okay.
Put your arms down at your side. Okay, heels touching, toes touching, no space between your feet.
Carver pointed out that it was a very racist comment, to which the anchor woman defiantly replied, "Yeah, it was." She also mocked the officer at various points during their interaction. When she was asked to say her ABCs as part of a sobriety test, Salley boasted to Carver, "I have a master's degree. What do you have?" before making fun of his male pattern baldness. While maintaining a standoffish attitude, the woman performed poorly during the sobriety test and was arrested on suspicion of DUI. Shortly after being handcuffed, Salley started crying and tried to walk back her comments. She apologized, saying that she was a cocky son of a gun, adding that she was from Texas and that her granddad was a cowboy. Salley pleaded to be released and, through tears, told the officer, "I'm a model citizen," as well as, "You're making a scene a mile from where I'm on TV. I'm not a bad person. And please, I work at the TV station. I can't have this." She was placed in the police vehicle, but shortly thereafter undid her seatbelt, got out, and tried to walk away. Law enforcement remained exceedingly patient and talked Salley back into the vehicle. Later on, she mumbled from the black seat, "It's 'cause I'm black. This is so racial." The woman, who also refused to submit to a breathalyzer, was held for 8 hours and then released. The Palm Beach County State Attorney determined that there was only enough evidence to arrest Salley, but not enough to convict her. She received a 2-month suspension from her workplace and, upon her return, reaffirmed her innocence, but also apologized for her behavior towards the officers. Number 1. Clinton Monroe Ellis-Gilmore. On August the 12th of 2023, Clinton Monroe Ellis-Gilmore was arrested at Table Bluff County Park in Lolita, a coastal community 15 miles south of Eureka, California. The 53-year-old man exposed himself while in the driver's seat of his parked car. For roughly an hour, he pleasured himself with the car door open in full view of the public. As reported by the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, the conduct was not directed at anyone in particular. One witness told a media outlet, "It's obvious, you cannot help but see this guy. He's not hiding it. He wants everyone to see what he's doing." Ellis-Gilmore was arrested and charged with indecent exposure, a misdemeanor for which he faced up to 6 months of prison time, a $1,000 fine, and a requirement to register as an offender. On his social media, Ellis-Gilmore posted photos that showed him covered in white face paint, long wigs, dresses, and fishnet tights. He had ties to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, whose members dressed up in drag in traditional Catholic nun habits. A number of photos showed Ellis-Gilmore in mock nun attire, while other posts were erotically suggestive. One of the images featured a pacifier, a lollipop, an ice cream bar, and a male organ with the caption, "Shh, it's okay. You've been preparing for this your whole life." The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, commonly abbreviated as SPI, had orders throughout the world, which were mostly registered as non-profit charity organizations. They raised money for AIDS, LGBT-related causes, and mainstream community service programs. The SPI frequently clashed with various Christian organizations who generally regarded them as blasphemous and accused them of making a mockery of the traditional values of the faith. One California-based branch of the SPI had recently been in the news after they were uninvited from the LA Dodgers Pride Night event in June, only to then be re-invited with an apology. A large group of protesters gathered outside the stadium on the night in question. In a statement released after Ellis-Gilmore's arrest, the SPI claimed that the man wasn't a full-fledged member and that they unreservedly condemned his actions. The man did, however, go by novice Sister Man Romeo and had attended a number of the organization's events in Eureka, including drag queen story hours in which he read to a group of young children. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get cancelled on social media or get arrested for public intoxication while having your pants down? Let us know in the comments section below.